This is going to be, at outset, at first glance here, it's going to seem a little bit confusing because Go has two basic data structures for handling lists of records. The first type of structure is called an array, and then the other is called a slice. And so don't let the word slice here confuse you. A slice is an array. It's just a fancy name. Inside of Go, an array can be thought of as a very basic or very primitive data structure for holding a list of records. Whereas a slice is a very similar data structure, but it's a little bit more fancy. It's got more features attached to it that you would usually expect to be attached to an array. And so as a very practical example, an array in Go is always going to be a very fixed length of records. So when we create an array, we would have to say that it is of length maybe 5. So then at that point in time, we could only ever have 5 playing cards inside of an array. On the other hand, a slice is like an array that can grow or shrink at will. And so we can add on new cards or subtract cards out of a slice. Besides that, slices and arrays both must be defined with a data type. And so whenever we have an array or a slice, every single record inside of it must be of an identical type. And so in this top example right here, we see that we have a slice with 3 records inside of it. Each of them appears to be a string. So we have 5 of diamonds. Diamonds, 3 of diamonds, and 5 of diamonds. However, on the example down here, and I know the red line is in the way, so let me move it for just a second, you'll see that our first record has a string of 5 of spades, and then the second record appears to be a number, which is definitely not a string. And so this code right here, or this type of data structure, would throw an error because we have dissimilar types inside of a single slice. So let's flip back over to our code editor and figure out how we create a slice. Back inside of our main.go file, I'm going to first start off by deleting everything inside the main function. So rather than making a single card, I want to figure out how to make multiple cards at a time. All right, so now instead, I'm going to create a new variable called cards to indicate that there are going to be multiple cards inside this thing. Because this is going to be a new variable that I'm declaring, I'm going to use the := syntax. Now I'm going to declare my slice. And inside of this slice, I want to put maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different cards. So to declare a slice with Go, we write out square brackets, like so, then the type of data that is going to exist inside the slice. At this point, we've only really been working with strings, and so I think that it definitely makes sense to assume that this slice that we're creating right here will be a slice of strings. So I'll say simply string, like so. Now do note that I'm not saying strings here. I'm saying just the very singular type. So this is going to be a slice of type string. So you want to think of it with that type of terminology, a slice of type string, rather than a slice of strings, like so. Because if you say a slice of strings, you're going to make a typo like so. So this would be invalid syntax right here. Now to specify the elements that exist inside the slice, we place a set of curly braces, like so. And then we can freely place all the different elements or all the different records that we want to place inside this slice inside of these curly braces. So maybe our card slice should have 2 cards inside of it. To do that, we could say new card and new card, like so. Now, because this is a slice of strings, we don't always have to call a function here. We could just as easily place in a very manually created string, like so. So maybe ace of diamonds. Let me zoom out for a second, just so you can see this line. There we go. Now, when I save the file, you're going to very quickly see an error message here. And this is a common error message that you're going to see as you start to really develop code. So there's nothing actually wrong with this line of code that we just added. If you hover over the line, you'll see that it says the cards variable was declared and not used. And so that's really why we've had that print line statement up here so long, or just to make use of the variable. Because if you declare a variable but you don't use it, Go is going to start to complain at you. And so let's add in that print line statement again. Say fmt print ln, and then cards, like so. And now when I save the file, that error message is going to go away. Now, 2 more quick things that you're probably going to be very quickly curious about when it comes to slices. The first one's probably going to be, how do we add a new element to a slice? So right here, we declared our slice of cards, but how do we now add an additional card to it? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We can say cards equals append. We'll pass in our existing slice, which is cards, and then the new element that we want to append onto the end of the slice. And so maybe we do, 6 of spades, like so. So this will take the cards slice, it will add on a new string to the very end, and then it's very important to note that the append function does not modify the existing slice. Instead, it returns a new slice that we then assign back to the variable of cards. So now if we printed out the value of cards right here, I would expect to see 3 elements inside of it. Ace of spades, 5 diamonds, and then 6 of spades. Now that little part that I just mentioned about how append does not modify the card slice and instead it returns a new one is actually a very important fact inside of Go. And it's something that we're going to expand upon in a really, really big way later on inside the course. Now, I know this is turning into a long section, but there is one last thing I want to talk about, and that is how we can iterate over a slice. So how do we say maybe iterate over the card slice and print out the value of every card inside of it? Well, let's examine how we would do that. So I'm going to write out the code to iterate over our slice of cards, and then we'll examine the syntax a little bit. So just follow along with the code that we write, and we'll talk about exactly what it's doing in just a second. So I'm going to say for I, comma, card, colon equals, range cards. We'll place curly braces, and then inside there we'll say fmt dot print ln card. And you know what? Let's also do I. We'll do I, card, like so. And I'll save this, and it looks like I don't have any errors. Now, before we talk about the syntax, let's run this code at the terminal really quick, just to verify that it works. So if it does work, I'm going to expect to see hopefully 3 print statements, where each print statement should have the index of a particular card in the slice, and then the value of that element in the slice as well. So I'm going to flip on over to my terminal. I'm going to make sure that I change into my cards directory, and then to build and execute our file, we'll run go run main.go. And when we do so, we see 0, 1, 2, and all the elements inside of it. Okay, so let's break down that syntax a little bit. So I'm going to pull up a diagram here, and here we go. Okay, so this is how we iterate over a closed set, or kind of like a slice, an existing slice of records. The most important element is off here to the top right-hand side. Here we said range of cards. And so you can interpret this as telling Go, hey, here is a slice of records. We want you to take this